What's going on, guys? The Comics Kid 2099 here to examine X-Men issue 119. This issue is brought to you by Chris Claremont, John Byrne, Terry Austin, John Costanza, Glynis Wein, Roger Stern, and Jim Shooter. This issue, not a whole lot happens. The previous issue was a whole lot of setup for this story. This one is a whole lot of action paying off the setup in the previous issue. In the previous issue, we find out that Moses Magnum threatens to sink Japan if rule of Japan is not handed over to him, and so in this issue the X-Men are going to quickly and quietly disable Moses Magnum's terrorist operation before he can sink Japan. We find out that the Prime Minister has already told the Emperor of Japan, we are not going to yield to him, so the X-Men have to stop Moses Magnum or all of Japan will be destroyed. And so we get to see some pretty cool use of the X-Men using their powers in a little bit more of a stealthy way. Storm carries Nightcrawler, and then he's able to teleport from where she's carrying him to the island. We get to see that Cyclops and Sunfire are using their abilities to tunnel beneath the island. It's kind of cool how that works. I'm not sure if it makes a whole lot of sense. Cyclops'S optic blasts are force beams, which means that he would be able to push a mound of dirt, but it wouldn't necessarily disintegrate a mound of dirt. Sunfire is using his powers in this tunneling system, but I still don't know if that would really work, but it still looks pretty cool. But basically, the X-Men are able to sneak in, and then by the time Moses Magnum figures out what's going on, it's nearly too late. He does realize that Cyclops, Sunfire, Wolverine, and Colossus are tunneling under the island. He says that he can sense anything that's going on in the earth, and so they weren't going to be able to sneak up on him. And also, Moses Magnum has more than just earthquake powers. I remembered reading these issues years ago, and all I remembered was he had earthquake abilities, but he's also able to pick up Colossus and throw him nearly off the island. And once again, Colossus is thinking to himself about how he's useless and he's never able to do anything right. Once again, I don't recall any specific instances of Colossus really messing up in the heat of the moment. I guess this is just him thinking that he needs to be better and he's not good enough at the moment. But Banshee eventually figures out that Moses Magnum is using a certain energy frequency in his earthquake abilities, and Banshee realizes he will be able to counter those frequencies with his own sonic screams. And so he tells Cyclops, get everyone off the island, and then basically Banshee is able to nullify Moses Magnum's abilities. And Moses Magnum's entire island base sinks, and then we get, I think it's a one-day jump in time. Misty Knight is searching for the X-Men. She finds them, and then Sunfire, he's thinking to himself, it sure was lucky that Storm was able to carry those X-Men, and I was able to carry those X-Men, and we all got out in time, which is fine. I didn't really need Sunfire narrating to the audience how everyone got off the island. Banshee already said, Cyclops, get everyone off the island. But we do find out that Banshee's powers have pretty much burned themselves out. And then Banshee is released from the hospital, and then he goes back to the Yoshido mansion, and the X-Men are like, hey, welcome back, Banshee, Merry Christmas, because at the end of the previous issue it said something like on the night of Christmas or something like that. You wouldn't have known this was a Christmas issue up until the last like 3 pages of the issue, but basically everyone is hugging each other. They're all saying, hey, we love each other like a family. Colossus, he is sad because he misses his actual family, and he doesn't mean it like this, but it sounds kind of awful because he tells Storm, I'm the only one here who actually has a family. And yeah, that's a little bit of a horrible thing to say, Peter. Meanwhile, Logan sees Mariko, and he wants to go and talk to her a little bit more, and then meanwhile, Misty, at one point, she says she's glad she found the X-Men, otherwise she doesn't know how she would explain to Jean Grey that the X-Men are dead. So now you've got Misty and Cyclops both are thinking about, like, man, how am I going to explain to this person that so-and-so is dead when it's all just a big Three's Company-esque misunderstanding? Like I said in last week's video, I like that kind of thing. I think that's fun. Then we cut to Edinburgh in Scotland. Jean has just spent 6 weeks in the Greek islands, I have no idea what it is that Chris Claremont likes about the Greek islands so much. He had Lilandra and Charles there when the X-Men were first taken to Antarctica when Magneto kidnapped them. Then in Charles's flashback in the Shadow King issue, he was there briefly before he went to Cairo. And then Jean spent 6 weeks in the Greek islands. I don't know what it is that Claremont seems to like about the Greek islands so much, but she comes to Edinburgh and she meets up with Maury McTaggart, Polaris, Havoc, and Jamie Madrox. And they're like, yeah, let's go celebrate Christmas in style. And then we cut to Muir Island, and the guy who rented a boat to the X-Men, this was like 15 issues ago, and their boat was destroyed by Magneto when he attacked them on Muir Island. He is still upset about his boat, even though this issue says he was paid for the loss of his boat. He's still mad about that, so he has snuck into Muir Island to set some bombs. And he's like, well, if somebody dies, that'll just be really awesome. And then somebody from the shadows attacks this man, and then the caption says, it's Christmas Day, and a life is lost. And so I'm not sure when we're going to get this. I'll go ahead and tell you, this is Proteus. This has been set up, like I said, about 15 issues ago or more. It's when Eric the Red released Magneto from his imprisonment at Muir Island. I think Magneto accidentally released Prisoner X, I think is what he was called. And that was set up forever ago, and now we're finally getting a payoff to that. But next issue is Wolverine Wanted, Dead or Alive. And I'll go ahead and tell you this in advance. That is going to be the first appearance of Alpha Flight. And so this kind of reminds me of something Louise Simonson said. She's not involved in the series yet, but later on down the line, she will be editing this series. And she said once, I don't know where I read or heard this, but she said that throughout her time on the book, that Chris Claremont would say he's getting tired of the series, he doesn't want to keep doing it, and then she would remind him, what about all these subplots here? There's this thing that you set up and this thing here, and that would kind of get him excited to go back to writing the series again. And I think I read somewhere, like I said, I don't remember where I heard this, that she actually had like a chart of all the different subplots that he had set up that hadn't been paid off yet, and then whenever he would kind of get down in the dumps about, I don't want to keep writing this anymore, she would remind him about one of these things from her chart. That sounds likely. It's been 15 issues since the Prisoner X thing was set up when Magneto was escaping Muir Island. It seems plausible that Claremont had just forgotten about this, and then he remembered and said, oh yeah, I spent a lot of time in space and in the Savage Land, and with Mesmero kidnapping the X-Men, I need to go ahead and pay this off. So I don't know how true that is, if she was just exaggerating or misremembering. I have no idea. I'm not going to call anybody a liar or anything like that. I've never heard Chris Claremont talk about being ready to leave the series at this time in his career, but it does seem plausible that he would have forgotten certain subplots and then needed to be reminded about them so he could bring them back. But that's what we will have going on in the next few issues, I believe. And that's about it here. We will get, I think it's pretty much made clear in this issue that Banshee is no longer going to be an active X-Man. He says to himself he's going to die in his sleep. He's not going to be out in the field adventuring anymore with his powers basically being gone. And so that's kind of a shame. I like Banshee here, but also I can tell that Claremont and Byrne really didn't have anything special they wanted to do with him. This is notable in that Banshee is eventually going to settle down with Maury McTaggart, and that's something that Claremont really wanted to do with most of the X-Men. He liked the idea of eventually you stop being an X-Man and you go live a normal life, specifically with Cyclops and Jean Grey. He wanted to do that with them, following what he wanted to do with the Dark Phoenix saga. And so he didn't want the X-Men to be a lifelong commitment for any of these characters. And so it is kind of neat to see that in action with Banshee. This is not someone who dies in the field like Thunderbird. This is someone who loses the use of his powers, and then he goes on to have his happily ever after. So that's kind of cool. We will see Banshee pop up again, I want to say about 10 years down the line. It's after the Australian Outback era. Banshee and Forge will be teaming up, doing some stuff here and there, but it's going to be a good long while before we see Banshee doing anything notable again in the comics. So that's about it for this issue. So let's consider this one Examine.